Hey, welcome back. Okay, here's the warning. Go get a pen or pencil and paper because you are going to need it today. Today, we have the Yorktown Poet Laureate, which means this is a guy whose finger or thumb is on the pulse of poetry. This is the man you go to when you want to know what is happening around here for poets, by poets, with poets. My name is Dacquino. His name is the great Johnny Mac, or John McMullen. Johnny Mac, talk to me. You are the pulse. What do you do? What is a poet laureate?
The poet laureate is other than the poet laureate of the United States, it's an unpaid position, and it's something that you're supposed to promote poetry in the area, bring it to the masses, because as you know from your teaching, most people were turned off on poetry while in school. So I'm trying to bring them back.
One of the most famous poet laureates of all time,
Billy Collins.
Or Robert Frost, who was Kennedy's, wasn't he?
No, he read at the inauguration.
At the Kennedy
He wasn't the poet laureate, though.
Oh, he wasn't in
No.
that? Oh, I thought he was. Well, just incredible. I remember, he did read. But wasn't Maya Angelou?
Yes, she was.
She was a poet laureate. And that's on a national level. So your job is to help inform people on what's going on in the world of poetry. So what do you do?
What do I do? Well, I belong to one poetry workshop every month at the Mayapack Library.
Right.
I run my own poetry workshop at the Yorktown Library.
Huh?
I participate in your writers group that's been going
workshop
on
every week,
for
faithfully,
21 years.
John, faithfully.
I also read at the Yorktown Town Board every other week.
Oh, wow.
I also read at the wonderful Hudson Valley Writers Center, which is in Sleepy Hollow, New York, once a month. There's also the weekly meetings in Stanford that Ralph Nazareth runs that are terrific. And there's opportunities to read all over.
So what happens is people come to these workshops and they read their poetry.
Right.
And the group comments on the poetry.
Yes.
And hopefully the writer takes some of their criticisms and adjusts the poetry to fit some of the comments, and sometimes takes the comments with a grain of salt and leaves the poem exactly the way it is.
Right.
But it's good to have a sounding board, and it's good to have other people hear.
And poetry is even more than prose, which I've written. It's a constant editing and re-editing.
Yeah.
One of my poems that I published this year is a poem that's not a jump shot. I was a basketball player. And when you went up in the air, if you got nothing but net, that was perfect, and you never did it over. However, poems are constantly being redone.
One of the greatest challenges I ever had was with emails to a paranormal. This entire book is written in poetry. They're 10-line poems. 10 in a chapter, 3 chapters in a section, and the whole idea is to be able to tell this entire story in poetry form, non-rhyming. The interesting thing about poetry, my students used to say to me, well, how long does a poem have to be? It doesn't have to be any particular length. It doesn't have to be any particular theme or topic. The wonderful thing about poetry is that it's a reflection of your emotions, how you feel. Is that how you view poetry?
Yes, there are one-sentence poems that are all over, that are being published. There's also Beowulf and the Iliad and the Odyssey that are complete books. So it doesn't, it's all what you want to say from in here, even more than from up here.
It's such a wonderful way to be in touch with who you really are. and what you really want to say. And sometimes just feeling something isn't enough. Communicating those feelings and emotions with other people is what it's really about. So there's so many different kinds of poetry, and it says so many different things. Knowing who you are as a poet is a wonderful way of knowing who you are as a person. That's the beauty of poetry. It's the highway to your soul.
It's not even knowing starting off, it's growing because you're able to bring up these emotions that you might not have tapped before.
Right.
And all of a sudden, that becomes part of you, more part of you than you realize.
Yeah. One of the things I love about people coming to the writers group is they come saying, I'm not a poet, and they leave saying, I am so. That's the whole thing. And it's a wonderful revelation. Does a poem have to rhyme? No. Does it have to be silly, sad, angry? Yes, it could be, it could not be. That's the amazing thing about it. It's so flexible. And because it's flexible, it gives individuals a chance to be individuals.
And because, unlike other kinds of writing, you aren't locked into capitalization, non-capitalization, line breaks, paragraph breaks. There are, now obviously in stream of consciousness writing, it's close to that. But poetry, more than anything, is completely free form. If you want it to rhyme, fine. If you don't want it to rhyme, fine.
Yeah. I remember first seeing Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken, and realizing that he's talking about a road, but he's really talking about choices in your life. And I look at that poem, 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and I, sorry I could not travel both, looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, and then took the other, being just as fair. And I realized that he was talking about me. He was talking about my having to make decisions of what I wanted to do, with my life. And that's what poets do. They help bring on a realization for things that you didn't always think about. And in this hubbub of life and the chaos that we live in, sometimes it's hard to be in touch with who we are. Now, you have helped so many people, I know, by helping them recognize ways to be recognized. There's places that'll publish poetry today.
Thousands.
So you have, I have to laugh because I asked you if you had any resources. You hand me like 8 pages over here. But the top 5 are heavy stuff. Tell me about these places where poets can go.
The first one is just the Writer's Digest, the annual publication.
Yep.
Poets Market from the Writer's Digest. An invaluable tool is something called Duotrope, DUOTROPE.com.
Okay, write that down. DUOTROPE.com.
And it's a place,
There it is.
there are weekly listings of all new markets, of markets that aren't there anymore. It's a database of all these markets, and you can look them up and what do they publish, what do they not publish. You can maintain an inventory of anything you've submitted, and you can have, is it pending acceptance, is it accepted, is it rejected? And the majority of poets, more than anything, tend to be rejected more than they're published.
Yep.
So
that's true with most writing.
And but you keep track of it, and it's a terrific tool. I recommend it. It's $5 per month.
So there is a fee.
It's well worth it.
Now, so for that, then you get an opportunity to get published.
Yes.
So that's very interesting because back in the day, you couldn't get published. It was almost impossible. I had a few poems published in literary college magazines, but some of those they're just not seen. Today, with the internet, oh my God, there's such an opportunity to be heard. and to get published.
Yes.
Sounds good. So what other things? What
There's
other
new-
ways?
There's New Pages, which is a similar thing. It's brand new opportunities to be published. That's New Pages, NEWPAGES.com. There's also some tremendous resources from a woman named Trish Hopkinson, TRISHHOPKINSON, and she has a website. You can do a search on her, and she constantly has new markets, things that don't cost to submit, things that pay, things that don't pay.
Yeah.
Finally, and it's the majority of the things that Vin held up. The Facebook had 6 pages of published poems in all different things: voice of poetry, poetry groups, occasional poets, modern and contemporary poets.
So you
360.
can send your work in and get it published in there.
Yes,
And get it seen by hundreds of people, maybe thousands.
thousands of people.
Wow.
And if you send me email, I will send this to whoever's interested.
Okay.
And my
You
email-
heard that? He said, send me email. And John's email is coming up on the screen right now
As we speak.
as we speak. There it is. John McMullen, johnmac13 at gmail.com.
Right.
So, John, people out there should write this down for sure, because if they want to know anything about poetry, you welcome all emails.
I'll be happy to answer.
Yep, I'm sure you would, and that's a good thing. And you'll tell them where they can go and where the different locations are for these. Now, there's also like coffee houses, just like the old days, man, where you can go and sit and hear poets read, these open mics. Tell me a little bit about the open mics in the area.
The open mics, well, the one that's the most famous is at the Hudson Valley Writers Center.
That's in Tarrytown?
That's in Sleepy Hollow, right?
Sleepy Hollow.
That used to be North Tarrytown.
Used to be North Tarrytown. I lived there.
And you get there, you can read for 5 minutes. It's the third Friday of every month at 7 o'clock. And
It's open enrollment? I mean, anybody can go?
show up
or you have to
and
be a
sign in.
member?
No,
No,
show up
great.
and sign in. And it's in the Phillipsy Manor train station. They own the train station. So the Hudson Valley Writers Center has classes, it has workshops, it has everything. But once a month, an open mic.
Wow.
And it's terrific.
And then how many minutes do you get to share your work?
5 minutes.
5 minutes per person.
Right.
So you can go bring a poem, and then do they get feedback?
No,
No feedback
No,
for that.
no.
You just
people talk
present
to you
your
after
work?
it,
Yeah.
but that's it, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Great.
There's
So-
also a weekly one in Stanford at the place called Curly's Diner. It's been going on
Really?
also for 20 years, and it's another tremendous thing there. There's
Same thing. You can bring your work.
right.
You get 5 minutes or so.
Right.
To read your.
Well, they
work.
have the featured poet.
Oh, okay.
I've been the featured poet, and then everyone else has 5 minutes to read. Yeah.
Wow. So that's cool. Now, so those are the open mics. Now there's workshops where you can go and they can give you assignments to do, and you.
Some of them do that. Others
We don't.
Others you just bring poems
Yep.
and you read and you talk about both the resources and your poems. As I mentioned, there's one in the Mayapack Library that meets tonight, and people.
So it meets every Wednesday.
No, that meets the second Wednesday of every
Second
month.
Wednesday of every month. And what are the times?
Of 6:30.
All right, and that's the Mayapack Library,
The Mayapack
or Mahopac, on Route 6. And again, people are welcome. You can come 2 or 3 times and then miss 2 or 3 and come back 2 or 3.
Yeah, they'd like you to be there all the time.
Yeah, it would be nice to be there all the time.
Then I run one in the John C. Hart Library in Shrub Oak, New York.
Right?
On
I've
East
done
Main
a book
Street.
signing there. With
And
you.
that's on the fourth Wednesday of the month. So you can go to both one on the second Wednesday and go to one on the fourth Wednesday. And you can read in Sleepy Hollow on the third Friday. And you can read at the Mayapack
Or you could be
Poetry
John
Workshop.
Mack and go to all of them.
Right. Well, you can go to all of them, yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. So there's a lot of opportunities for poets who want to be heard.
Yeah, and the important thing to remember is that people come to poetry at different times in their life. There are people that are trained in college, they know what they want to do, or in high school. I was an English major, but I didn't read or write a poem for 35 years. And then I just happened to pick up someone's book of poetry because the book had a funny title. Then I said, hey, I could do this. This guy's crazy. You know?
Now, you have the first poem you ever wrote,
Yeah.
don't you? Can you read that for us?
Yes, I can. And if it had not, I wrote this poem, and then someone said, you should do something with it. And I said, what do you do with it? And they said, oh, you should do something with it. That I didn't do anything. Then another friend said, you should send it to a contest. And I said, why would I do that? And they said, well, because, and I did, and I forgot about it, and I finished third in the national conference. And it was
Wow.
however, it was $25 and a subscription to poets and
Yeah,
writers.
often some of these have little fees to join, and I guess that
Well,
covers
this wasn't,
the.
but this wasn't. But it was either a curse or a
Yeah, or a
or
blessing.
they had me then. It's called cashing a check. I just saw this wonderful line in a column in a motorcycle magazine. The mind writes checks that the body can't cash. The vision that many from the old neighborhood have of me is short and thin with a Pepsi in one hand and a cigarette in the other. Others will remember me as taller than thin, hitting the jump from the corner or throwing the no-look pass to a cutter. Others will picture me at the end of the bar in the Broadstone with a pack of Pall Malls and a half-finished beer in a bar. John Gibson, I Can't Stop Loving You, in the jukebox. Pat, one more when you have a chance. Age has taken the jumper. Diabetes has taken a Pepsi. Common sense has taken the cigarette and booze. I'm older and wiser and hopefully more tolerant. I'm satisfied with my life, but to just once more be able to fake the man God in me, go up with a jump and get nothing but net, to be able once more to cash that check.
Wow.
And that was the first one.
Yeah, and that's the one that caught you, and you knew you were a poet.
Only when someone else said, fine, here's third prize, here's your $25.
Now, you read that poem out of a book of poetry that you've written.
My most recent book, Live at the Freight House. I was the poet laureate at a terrific place that Vinny has also read at, the Freight House Cafe.
Yeah, Freight House Cafe here
In Mahopac.
in Mahopac.
And these were all of the poems that I read, and I also had other people an open mic after it, and so I've got poems in it that they wrote.
So there are local cafes and restaurants that offer open mics
Yes.
from time to time.
Yes.
And Freight House is one of them.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a lot of open mics in libraries and things. So you have an entire collection of poems.
Yeah.
That you.
This is my seventh book of poetry.
So you have 7.
They're all up on Amazon.
Wow.
There's one that's new and collected poems that's about 120 poems.
Wow.
A collection.
So when do you write?
I write sometimes like you
Yeah.
in the middle of the night.
Sometimes we write to each other at 3 o'clock in the morning. 'Cause
Right.
That's my favorite writing time.
But I try to write every day. And the wonderful thing about the writers groups is it puts pressure on me to have something
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
to read at the group.
I cannot express enough the importance of a writers group. When I was teaching, I had the Peanut Butter and Jelly Writing Academy for those students who loved to write, but there wasn't time in the curriculum. Even though, I was an English teacher and I pushed poetry in my classes, I had a curriculum to follow, and I couldn't have them write poetry every day, although I would have loved to. So after school, I formed a group, and it was the Peanut Butter and Jelly Writing Academy. We had peanut butter and jelly when peanut butter was legal, and we had milk and cookies, and the students would write poetry. it's important to have the time to write. A lot of times, poets say to me, what kind of training do I need to be a poet? I said, listen, be yourself. However, keep in mind that sometimes where you write, when you write, how long you write, has meaning. Some writers write in the morning. That's when they feel the freshest. Some write at night. Some write in the afternoon. Some write in the backyard. Some write in the library. It depends on who you are. And I call that the poet's profile. You need to know your poet profile. You need to know when you're at your best. John, when are you at your best?
Probably in the morning, in the late morning, after I've taken the dog out and after I've walked around for a while. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so you sit, maybe have a cup of coffee and write.
Yeah.
Are there...
But I write all the time, though.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you.
I write nights, I write...
Are there specific themes that are John Mac themes?
Many of my things, as you know from me reading, are things that try to end with an ironic ending.
Yep.
And
you always have that little clincher at the end.
I also write because I get exercised about it, political things, and I also write about pets because I feed not only my pets but the local groundhogs and deer and everything else. So it's whatever moves me at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read a lot.
Yep. So it's good to believe in poetry, and it's good to believe that you do have a message, and that message should be shared. You've talked about some of these things. Again, if we go online to your website, we'll find a lot of these. But we will also get an opportunity to meet some poets through a radio program. You never mentioned that you have a radio program, and these people can actually listen to you every Sunday. Tell me a little about that.
I have a weekly radio show. I've done 255 broadcasts to date.
You have me beat. I have 230.
I know.
Oh, you did that on purpose just to beat me.
I have many writers, poets, religious figures, politicians, but mainly writers. And I have I have an in-depth conversation. You've been on 3 times.
Yeah.
And you will be on 4th with the new book coming out.
That's right. That's right. And a number of your guests were my guests.
Right.
And I mean, you've passed some great names to me and some great guests. And on those shows that you talk about similar people and their passion.
Whatever people do, starting at I ask everyone to send me the womb to present bio. And I start then, yeah.
Yeah, and then you talk about all the things. I remember a remarkable show was with John...
Chick Donahue?
Chick Donahue. Oh, God, that was an experience. He was wonderful. But also detective writer and his sister, who was the newscaster.
Oh, Frank Hickey.
Yes, Frank Hickey and McGee Hickey.
And Frank was a guest here, too.
Yeah, he was twice. Yeah, he's a great guest. So there's a lot of people out there with a lot to say about poetry. People who heretofore didn't really know that they were talented. And unless you try, and unless you really take a chance, you'll never know. I know people who I call drawer poets. They write at home and then they hide their things in the drawer because they don't want anybody to see it. In truth, people should see it. And as we explore ourselves and we bounce that off other people, we become more complete. And that's what poetry does for me. It helps to make me more complete. My writing, I did limited poetry, but most of mine are novels or nonfiction, as you know. My Sybil Ludington book.
Which is a new one coming out.
New one coming out April 1st.
April Fool's Day.
Yeah, April Fool's Day. It will hit the press. It will hit the stores, actually. So that'll be coming out, but there's always more to write about. So if you have something to say, poetry is the way to say it. If you don't know how to become more familiar with poetry, you need John Mack. And you need to get in touch with him, get on his website, find out what he has, and get on the ball, man. Go to one of these cafes, go to writing workshops, go online, learn about all of these contests, and see some of these works that you ordinarily don't see. John, you have 1 minute, man.
I would want people to, to understand, A, that you do not have to have started poetry at any time during your life. Try it. Go to a writers group. You can certainly go, not just limited to poetry, to the Mayapack Writers Group. That over 100 books have come out of the Mayapack.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I believe.
Almost 150.
And send me email.
Sounds good.
And buy Vinny's book.
Yep. John, I can't thank you enough. Keep doing what you're doing, Mr. Poet Laureate. You are our spokesman. We're listening, keep talking, and keep sharing with us. You keep tuned to this program because there'll be a lot of poets and writers coming your way. Thank you for being one-on-one with Johnny Mack.